So, how cheap is it to live in the Philippines? It's, from just some basic things. If we spoke about a rent every month for a beer in a bar, like for a taxi ride, what kind of prices and how would that differ, say, from Australia?
I would say when I first got here in 2014, when I came back from Mindoro, having done the music festival, I rented an apartment, right, and I got a one-bedroom apartment with no furniture in it, so it was an unfurnished apartment, and it was 6,000 pesos a month, which is a little bit over $100 US, almost 200 Aussie dollars. So that, in comparison to having rented an apartment, a two-bedroom apartment, unfurnished, for $500 a week in Fortitude Valley, you can just do the math and compare that. Like, it was right in the heart of Quezon City, walking distance to where I was born, and in the neighborhood there. So it was convenient for me, but there's no furniture, so I had to furnish it. And the only downside to that was the electrical wiring looked like it came straight out of the 1930s. Now, if you fast forward a few years, when I moved into Makati from Quezon City, I have rented apartments and condos here, and then they're starting at like between 12,000 and up. So I rented a place that was about 12,000 pesos a month, and it was unfurnished, and it was just a room, so it wasn't a full place. Like, it didn't even have its own bathroom. It was a choice of one of two rooms in this place that was above a hairdressing salon right in Poblacion. So I sort of took it because it was walking distance to my work, and it was cheap. But then, you've got places that are a stone's throw away. I stayed in a place for a couple of months. It's 25,000 a month. So, it starts to climb up, but in comparison, it's going to be between 50% to 75% cheaper than living in Australia, living here, as far as rent goes. Then your electricity, as long as you're not running too many devices, it's pretty cheap, man. Like, I think the maximum I paid for electricity running an aircon and a computer and the refrigerator and stuff was about 6,000 a month. So, it's not going to break the bank if you're pulling in funds. But I've lived in a lot of poor places. I've lived in places like in the province areas in Porto Galera that were very poor. But I've also lived in cheap places that were attached to resorts for probably the equivalent of around $10 a day. So it's about 15,000 a month in rent, and that doesn't include your electricity or food. But mind you, like, when you're living outside of the city, food is cheap, man. Like, street food or Carinderia food, you'll get a good feed, like a decent feed. You could feed 2 to 5 people for 500 pesos in some of these places, right? Which is $10. Like, there's not many places you can go and get a $10 meal that's going to, or like a $10 group of meals that's going to feed for up to 5 people, right? So so it is good in that way, but there are a lot of differences as far as the percentages of the differences. Like, I would prefer to live in Australia, but now the cost of living has gone up, so I'm about to see what it's like for the first time in 9 years and 8 months. But I consider myself based in Manila, to be honest. And it's not just the cost of living being lower, it's the combination of the cost of living being lower and the strength of the art and culture aspect and the nightlife. It's just, I know, a little bit of a stronger scenery, but I'd still prefer, like, to fly back and forth and be involved in both. It's just like, if it was a choice of where would I like to live, I'd definitely like to live here over, not in Manila though, probably in province area, Porto Galera or Subic Bay, Olongapo, or even down Mactan, Cebu type way, or in Surigao Island. Like, as much as it's a popular tourist spot for surfing and stuff, like, I just went there for the first time a couple of weeks ago, and it's cheap. Like, you can get a really good, like, meal that's in a really popular place. Like, we got lumpia, which is the spring rolls. They were 5 pesos each. 5 pesos on the tourism road, like, and it was at a really popular food house. So we were eating there like daily. We would spend about 200 pesos each just per meal. And it was like, half a chicken, half a barbecue chicken. Like, there's no way that I could eat like that in Australia. Like, we were pretty much eating like kings, and alcohol is cheap. So, yeah, there's the big differences.
So, as we're drinking a beer here, how much is a beer? A local bar or on a rooftop? What does a beer cost you?
I'd say it'd be about 100. I didn't actually check the menu, but I'd say it'd be about 100 pesos, which is standard now.
100 pesos like a standard cost.
It's the standard price. But if we got closer into Poblacion where we usually hang out, they're going up now. They're like 120. Some places are 165 for the same beer. It's the same beer. I don't understand why they up the prices, because places aren't making as much money after pandemic. But it's really been quite hard for people to bounce back and draw the crowd, because a lot of people will drink at home and they'll get tanked and then go out after pre-games and they spend less money. So, yeah.